I am Jim Collison, and this is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on April 13th, 2022. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you're listening live on our live page, gallup.com/CliftonStrengths/live, there's a link right above me over there to our YouTube instance. Click on that, sign into the chat room. You can ask questions live. We'd love to have you do that. If you're listening after the fact, you can always send us an email with your questions, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to subscribe to Called to Coach on your favorite podcast app or right there on YouTube so you never miss an episode. Carol Anne McGuire is my guest today. She is back, and Carol Anne is a Gallup certified strengths coach specializing, and you'll see this today, specializing in education, faith-based congregations. She's spoken nationally, internationally for companies such as Apple, Discovery, and Google. Carol Anne, great to have you back. We've got kind of a crowd with us today. This is going to be pretty awesome. Welcome back to Call to Coach. Let's catch folks up really quick. We spent some time a few weeks ago kind of catching up on the program, but for those who maybe missed that, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing there, and then we'll bring the students in to interview them.
All right. So I coach in a middle school. I'm a librarian in middle school, but part of my job is I do strengths with the students, the staff, and the parents. And so this year, I'm always looking for something that I can do to teach the kids, how to work with their strengths. And so this year we had the opportunity we have a therapy dog at the school, and they were having a fundraising competition with this therapy dog. So I was like, oh, perfect. I'll put them in partners of two, and we'll learn about the power of two and how to use your strengths and how to use your partner's strengths for a goal. And so our goal was fundraising. We originally set our goal at $3,000, thinking, oh my gosh, that's so much money. I can't believe it. And as they were working together and were starting to hit their stride on how to tap into each other's strengths, our goal kept going up and up and up. And the kids raised $23,000 together. They're 13 and 14 years old. But they really did it by using the power of their strengths. So what I did is I made a call out in the Gallup coaching blog or Facebook page and said, hey, I'm looking for some coaches to kind of help these kids. This is what we're doing. And the kids all got coaches, and it was amazing. Like, these coaches it was so fun for me because I'm also a coach. So to sit in on someone else's coaching session and be like, ooh, that was a good idea. Ooh, I'm writing stuff down. And they were getting great ideas, but just, wow, what an experience to be able to have that when you're just a kid.
I was pretty excited when we started talking about this, to be able to kind of run the gauntlet with the students a little bit, to be like, because it's a big opportunity for them, right? It's a big, and they dreamt big. They went for it. I think that's sometimes we think, and I'm bad this way sometimes. I think I had some experiences when I was younger where I went big and I went home. Right. And so good on them for really, taking this and then really focusing on their strengths to take advantage of those in the situation. In our next episode, we will interview the coaches, which I'm excited about. But we have the students today.
I can't even wait. I have purposefully not debriefed with the coaches because I want to hear what they have to say on your show, because I'm so curious to hear their side of the story.
Well, we'll have links in the description, and actually on the description here on YouTube is the link to the prior show where we kind of cover all the details. So we don't want to spend too much time doing that today. We want to leave as much time as we can for the students. Carol Anne, let's bring in the first two students. Why don't you introduce them as we bring them in, and then let's ask them some questions.
This is Isabella. Isabella, give a wave. And Natalia. And they decided while they were talking to their coach that they were going to write to Gallup, and not for a fundraiser, but for something else. So I'm going to let the girls kind of tell you. Girls, why don't you just talk about when you were talking with your coach, what was the idea that you came up with?
Hi. Okay. So We started talking to our coaches just mainly first about our competition that we were in and talking about how we can raise money, creative ways to fundraise. And the more we got talking, we all kind of came up with this idea that we could contact Gallup to donate to this. And I think when all of us kind of heard that idea, we all kind of knew that it was definitely going to be bigger than just this competition. And I think that's really where it all started.
To add to Natalia's idea, we really want to do a teen strength summit. And that is like our bigger idea, because I know when I got my strengths, it really helped me out. And I'm sure for everyone of the other students, it helped them out too. So we want to do that and try to get extra codes for the entire honors 8th grade.
Let's I'll get hammered in the chat room if I don't do this. We should probably figure out your top 5 or whatever you can remember from them. So Natalia, let's start with you. What can you name off your top 5?
My top 5 are strategic, futuristic, maximizer, adaptability, and ideation.
That's pretty great, because a lot of the adults that take CliftonStrengths can't do that. So nice job on being able to do that. Isabella, how about you?
My top 5 are competition, achiever, focus, command, and significance.
Oh, Carol Anne, you drilled them well. Nicely done.
They are amazing.
Yeah. Do you want to add, when you think about both of them, talked a little bit about the project, do you want to add anything to that?
I do want them to talk about how they use their strengths together, because they really did. Once they realized what their strengths were, then we studied kind of each other and how they could partner together to go forward. So what did you guys do? How did you use your strengths together?
Isabella, let's start with you on that question.
So Natalia has ideation, so she like pops out all the ideas into her brain, and I have a lot of executing domains. So I'm very good at like shaping the plan and executing it. And I think having competition and Natalia having like ideation and futuristic and adaptability really like helped our strengths like pair together, because they're kind of opposite. So she helps me and I help her.
Well, and opposite, we would say complementary in some cases, right? They help each other from that, because they're not opposing, right? Isabella, you kind of alluded to this. Can you think of a situation where you specifically used Natalia's ideation to take advantage of it for your benefit?
Yeah. So during the Mojo competition, we had an idea to do a ruffle, and Natalia had like 4 different ideas on how we can do it. So I used her ideation, because my ideation is pretty low. I think it's in like 20 or something like that.
Now you said a ruffle. Did you mean to say it that way? And why'd you call it that?
So we called it a ruffle because raffle technically isn't allowed at our school because it's considered gambling. So we called it a ruffle instead of raffle.
Why? What's the significance of a ruff?
Our therapy dog.
The dog.
Yeah.
The dog in that. Natalia, do you want to add to that? We'll flip that question to you. How did you, by the way, Natalia, you and I are a lot alike in that I have all these ideation influencing themes. I can actually hear it in the way you talk. I have to rely on folks with high executing themes to actually get stuff done. So talk a little bit about how that worked for you.
Yeah. So in this competition, we obviously competition as a strength was definitely something that would be beneficial. And Isabella has that as her first strength, and I have it very low in my 34. So I definitely used hers, I guess, and I relied on her for competition because I'm definitely not as good in that area.
Yeah. I mean, you're okay if everybody wins. Like, let's all do this together.
Yeah.
Let's see how many people we can get to do this, right? Right. And Isabella is definitely, no, I'm going to win this thing. Right. Yeah. You guys, Carol Anne, you saw this playing out between the two of them. Can you talk a little bit? Could you see that happening between them as they were working together?
100%. So when they were originally talking with their coaches about all the ideas they had, and these girls, I mean, Natalia can whip off 5,000 ideas off the top of her head. When they were going through ideas, you could almost see Isabella grab the ones that she was going to be like, yep, that's the one, and then once she grabbed the one that it ended up being the ruffle. When she grabbed that idea, you could see competition and command pop up immediately. You could just see like, okay, this is it. This is what we're doing. Now let's figure it out. Let's put it together. And it was immediate.
Did you guys ever come to a point of conflict where you needed to take a step back and focus and say, hey, maybe my competition, Isabella, maybe my competition's overriding some things here, or it's getting a little too aggressive, or Natalia, did you get to a point where maybe it was too many ideas? How did you guys work together to kind of, if you got to that point, maybe not, but if you got to that point, how'd you work that out? I'll throw it to Isabel. I'll throw it to you first. Any thoughts?
So my competition probably got a little out of hand sometimes. I really want to win and I'll do anything to win. So Natalia would be like, okay, I know you have competition high. We gotta chill out for a little bit and we gotta just focus on this, which I got focused too much into the competition and not in the project necessarily. So Natalia would calm me down and be like, we gotta do this.
Yeah, good recognition. Natalia, you do want to add to that, or what was that like coming? Maybe this is a better question. Knowing that about Isabella, how did that give you an advantage in the working partnership? How did that help you?
I think knowing that Isabella has competition really high, I could help her, I guess, channel that into this competition and channel that for our success. Also having adaptability, I could just kind of move along with anything. I was pretty flexible. I definitely do think that my ideas probably got out of hand at some point, and Isabella was like, all right, we actually have to start doing something and stop just being in the planning process.
Oh, that's never been said to me, by the way, but yeah, Natalia, as I get to know you a little bit, I think we may be the same person in that, because right on. Although I've had in Isabella, I think you probably know, there's certain situations where you need ideas, and you could go to Natalia and say, hey, let's crank through something. How are we going to solve this problem? Or how can we approach this? Natalia, you said you also have adaptability high. Is that right? So how did that throughout this? I'm sure things changed during this competition. How'd that help you respond to changes and maybe even setbacks in this project?
I think it helped a lot. Every time that something changed, like somebody got ahead of us on the leaderboard, I could kind of just adapt and be like, all right, well, if this just happened, let's just try and do this instead and see if that approach works.
Isabella, you love that leaderboard, didn't you?
Yeah. I liked being on top for the time that we were. We ended up getting third place, but when we were first, it felt very nice.
Did it hurt a little bit? Did third hurt a little bit?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's so great. Carol Anne, I want to bring in some of the other students as well, but any other thoughts or questions for these two before we bring in the others?
This is a perfect segue, because as we're talking about being in first place, the next kids that we are going to come up are going to probably have a whole nother conversation about first place, because as we were on the leaderboard with Mojo, I had our personal leaderboard for my students. And so as these kids are coming in right now, while we were talking with our coaches, Taven, who wave your hand, Taven got the idea to write a grant, I guess, an ask of Coca-Cola for $10,000. And that was a game changer for the entire team, because our original goal that we thought was very high and scary of $3,000 immediately jumped to $10,000. And Taven really changed the game for all of us. And him and McKenna, where's McKenna? Wave so everybody knows who you are, McKenna. There you go. Were the team together. And so they worked together. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ashna in a second. But Taven really and McKenna took this competition to a different level. McKenna was the social media queen and getting things out social media. Taven was a go-getter on creating projects, creating experiences. I mean, I'll let him tell you a little bit about what he's done.
Taven, let's start with you. If not, let me have you do your top 5 again. They'll kill me here if I don't get that out. So tell us your top 5, and then let's talk a little bit about what inspired you to really ramp this up.
My top 5 is deliberative, analytical, responsibility, achiever, and command. What I really
keep going.
Go ahead.
No, well, let me rephrase that question for you. So what inspired you, I mean, to think big on this, to take this from 3,000 to 10,000, and kind of walk us through your thought process a little bit?
We had a meeting with Ashley Drew. She's a Pet Partners like executive, not executive, but like somewhere up there, really high on the fundraising. So she said we could write grants and go to the executive level and ask companies. So I was like, hey, why not just get a list of companies that donate to fundraisers? Just email them. So we did that. Coca-Cola sent me grant papers, so I filled those out.
Did you have to do some research on that to find that, to figure that out? Yeah. How do you get it done?
It took us, I think, 2 days of research. Was it?
Yeah.
2 days of research. Yeah, 2 days of research to get that done.
How did it feel to send that off to them, to put all that together and then kind of think, okay, here we go? I mean, because there's a chance of rejection in this, right? How'd that feel?
Yeah. I wanted to say I was confident, but I didn't really. It's not that I didn't care. It just didn't affect me as much as I thought it would. It was like, okay, just another one done. Get some more done.
Yeah,
I didn't really do any more after that.
How do you think that responsibility and command that you have played a little bit into just getting it done, so to speak?
I think because my responsibility works where if I like say something, I'll get it done. So now that I already said I was like gonna ask or go into the company level, I was like, let's do this.
Might as well get it done. McKenna, let me bring you in to talk a little. First of all, tell us your top 5.
My top 5 are connectedness, restorative, command, strategic, and futuristic.
So a couple commands working together, and that's pretty great. You guys, I'm sure, took advantage of that. Your part in the project on this as well. Talk a little bit about your involvement in it.
I did a lot of social media work. I posted a decent amount of things on my Instagram, and I posted a lot on my mom's Facebook because I knew that would reach kind of a wider audience, instead of middle schoolers who don't have any money. But I did a lot of social media fundraising, and I helped Taven here and there with some of when he wrote his letter to Coca-Cola, and we kind of had different ways of approaching this. We weren't helping each other as much, but we did end up having the same goal, and I think our ways both worked.
Carol Anne, do you want to talk about that as what you saw from the outside looking in for those two?
With these two? Yeah, they didn't share ideas in the same way that Natalia and Isabella shared ideas, but they were on the same page working different angles. So McKenna really took the social media aspect, and Taven took the asking corporations and creating experiences, doing pizza parties and selling things. I mean, he was like on fire. But the two of them together sharpened each other, because when one would think of an idea, it would spark the other one to think of another idea. And it was fun to watch these two together, because they really did. They worked off each other's sparks.
Do you, Taven, did you feel like McKenna was a similar partner to you, or had a different set of skills there that you could use or work with? Talk a little bit about your partnership there.
I didn't feel like McKenna was anything like me, because she had a lot more ideas than I did, because my ideation's like 33. So that's not. I'm not gonna get many ideas. So I had to just spark off her, and just use her ideas and put a spin on it.
And McKenna, same kind of question to you. How was that relationship for you?
He has a lot of executing skills near his top 5, like his and I have more relationship building. So he used responsibility to get to his goal faster, and he kind of helped me figure out the best way to get to something, because sometimes I'll take like kind of a longer route to get to the same place. So I think he helped me get to where I was trying to get faster.
We
McKenna,
also had
go ahead, Caroline. Go ahead.
2 people with command in the same group. So their commands took over. Once they got their ideas, they were on a path. And so it was very interesting to see a group. I was interested to see how is a group with two leaders, 2 commands in the same group. And for them it worked. I mean, it really did work. It was really fascinating to watch how they would work off of each other's, somebody would create an idea and then Taven would get it and run with it. And he would run with it before we were even done with the idea.
Taven, McKenna, did you guys feel like knowing each other's strengths gave you an advantage in some way in the work that you're doing? Was there at any point, and McKenna, I see you shaking your head yes, so I'll let you go first. Any thoughts on how did that help you knowing, your teammates' strengths?
So like I said, I have connectedness as my number 1, which is a relationship building skill. And he has a lot of executing skills in his top 5. So I think that it was really helpful for me to know that he kind of lacked the relationship building area. And I think that was easier for me to help him kind of work on making his letters and asking people for more donations, like making it more like reaching out to people. I think I helped him with that, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job of it, Taven. It sounds like, though, once you've got the mission of what you need to get done, you pretty much just hammer it out and get it done. Is that right? Is that the way this works?
I mean, like, I come up with a plan. She would like adjust the plan a little bit to make it more doable and appeal to people more. And I was like, okay, let's do this. I just ran with it.
Yeah. How great is that to see those come together? Well, we've got Caroline. We have one more to talk about.
Yes,
we talked a little bit about Ashna.
I do want to introduce you to Ashna because Ashna was kind of our wild card in this. So Ashna leads with some heavy thinking skills and competition. So I'm going to let her just kind of talk to you about her what her themes are, but she definitely was the wild card in this.
Great. Ashna, start with your top 5.
My top 5 are competition, intellection, deliberative, connectedness, and restorative.
You got a couple competitions in there, Carol Anne, so that's pretty great. And talk a little bit about your role here on the project. What did you do?
So I came in with $10,000 in matching. So I used my mom's company, which does a matching program, and I put in $5,000 and we got $5,000 back. So I brought in $10,000 for the fundraiser.
And how did you, what knowing your strengths or getting some clues to your own talent, how did that help you in this process?
So I have connectedness, which kind of builds bridges with people. So I connected the fact that, my mom does matching. So it could have been $5,000 because she had $2,500, and we could have done $2,500 plus $2,500 would be $5,000. But I connected the fact that my mom has a friend in that company, so we could do $5,000.
It's you know what, you guys are going to get some phone calls from some employers who are like, hey,
I'm not joking. Like, I would hire these kids in a minute to do work for me. The funny thing with Ashna is she didn't really tell anybody what she was doing. It was came out of left. I mean, I knew what she was doing and her partner knew what she was doing, but for everyone else, it really did come out of left field. And I was asking her about it, and she has deliberative and intellection. So she was thinking about it, but she was not showing her cards until she came in with $10,000.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ashna, you know, working in the strengths community a lot, that deliberative, this idea of spending some time thinking about taking the time to think through some things. How's that work for you? I mean, how do you find success in being one who thinks through things?
So it came in really handy because we have some high competition people in, like, our TAs are really high in competitiveness. And I know Taven is actually really competitive. So if I told him that I had $10,000 in matching, he would pull through with something immediately. So I really use my deliberative to think of the obstacle that, oh, Taven might win. So
Great.
I didn't tell anyone.
That's super great. That is super great.
It was
Carol,
not super great for Taven. He was not happy. I'm not going to lie.
Taven, did that frustrate you a little bit?
Oh, that
There you
definitely
go.
frustrated me. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. How did you respond? Just walk me through your thought process a little bit of responding to that. What were you thinking in a situation like that?
I found out and I was like, what? I was like, repeat that like one more time. I don't know what happened. My brain was just like not working.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Carol
at
Anne,
the time he was so high. He had so many funds that he had done by himself. So it really did look like Taven was just going to take the whole thing.
and then not so much. And then not so much at the very end there. Carol Anne, as we look at, you know, all five, and you just kind of think, you know, in a lot of ways you played the role of the manager in this setting. What do you think? What kind of advantage does that give you as a manager, knowing this to begin with? And then when we think about, and we don't spend a lot of time on Call to Coach, and we do more on the corporate side, thinking about engagement, though, you've got to keep these students engaged in this project. Can you talk a little bit about the advantage knowing this gives you as the manager, so to speak, and how do you kind of keep them engaged?
For me, it was a lot of behind the scenes things that were happening. So I made sure, like, I had prizes for my students. So besides what Mojo was winning for the competition, we created our own prizes here. So I had put aside gift cards and different things for them, and we kept a leaderboard. It was just constantly letting them know where they're at. But here's the thing, they were all amazing. And you're just only hearing from 5 kids. I have other kids that could equally tell you an amazing story that they did. And so it was fascinating for me to just sit back and watch how they were thinking and how they were processing things and what kinds of projects they were all different. They were very, very different from every team, looked vastly different from the other team. And I think as a manager, it wasn't so much about who was bringing in the most money, although that was important. For me, it was the fascination of every team being so unique and gifted and encouraging them in what they could do. Because I had kids who were very, very afraid to ask people for money. And so we would, and then you had Taven, who was not afraid of anything, you know. So I had, you know, and Isabel, like, I had kids that were just not afraid of anything. They would just go out and ask anything. And then I had students that were legit afraid to ask somebody for money. So those teams I had to work differently than other teams, but it was still amazing. And you still have to reward the teams that even did a little, because they came out of their comfort zone. One of my kids was so afraid to ask for money, finally asked for money and got a lot, like a decent amount. And it was just, for me, the process was overcoming that fear more than what the money was coming in. It was watching a student be afraid of something and really overcoming it and being to the point where, okay, the next time, if I ever have to do this again, I'm not going to be quite so afraid. That's a huge win for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love to see it through the framework of strengths, because I think it gives us that advantage, right?
Yeah.
It allows us to kind of lean into that in a way that's best for us. So, by the way, McKenna, we have a social media manager position open right now. So if you're interested, maybe in 10 years, but we'd love to have, it's for me, of course, being a recruiter for so many years, I always see the talent and I start figuring out, okay, I would put Taven here and I'd put Isabella there. So great opportunities. I want to open this up a little bit to the audience that's listening now. Put your questions in chat. If you haven't done it yet, there's a link right above us there on our live page, CliftonStrengths/live. If you're there, click on that link. It'll take you to YouTube, and there's a chat room there. A few of you have jumped in and asked some questions. Catherine has asked, she says, I seem to recall that futuristic shows up for at least 3 of the students. Who has futuristic in their top 5? Just raise your hand. If so, 1, 2. Okay, 2 of you. So we'll ask you guys this question. How did futuristic show up for them along the project's journey? So McKenna or Natalia, how did you see, and just unmute and talk at this point, how did you see that futuristic showing up for you in the project?
I think that during this project, having futuristic, I could kind of look ahead and see where we were going, and I kind of had a clearer path of what I thought the competition, how it would go along, how it would end. I did think we were going to win, or at least be in second place, but I think we were still close, and futuristic was definitely very, very helpful.
Yeah, you have to have a hope. I mean, you have to have a hope to go towards the goal, right? I mean, it has to be there for that. Do you feel like you could see ahead in the future, so to speak, using that term, to is it exciting for you to think ahead? Like, do you like to spend some time kind of forecasting what you think is yet to come?
I do. I feel like I'm always thinking ahead, always thinking about the future. I think it's fun, but it can also cause a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. But if I can keep it controlled, I think it's very useful, very beneficial.
Great. McKenna, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with everything she said. It can be very helpful when you're working on a big plan and you want to know, okay, well, once I'm doing this, like what consequences could come from this, good and bad, and like if this happens, am I going to need to do this? And it can get stressful, but it's also insanely helpful to know that I have that, and like knowing my strengths is it makes it a lot easier for me to figure out when to use them and how to better use them.
Oh, that's great. That's great. We got another question from the chat room. McKenna, I'm going to have you watch your microphone, because when you, I have you hitting it and we just hear that. So just be careful with your mic there. So Michael asked the question for the students, as you work together as a team and use your natural strengths together, did it excite you to see your team's performance go up? Who would be willing to unmute and share maybe an instance where you saw that happen or you took advantage of that? We shared a little bit of that earlier, but any other thoughts on that?
So I have competition as my number 1. So when me and Natalia went up on the leaderboard, it was very exciting because I like to win. So seeing our names like on the leaderboard, it boosted my confidence and morale kind of, because I have positivity very low. So when we were up on like top of the leaderboard, it definitely boosted like confidence and stuff.
Isabella, I have a sales position open for you too as well. When you get to that spot, we'll have to keep an eye on you guys. Who else wants to share as you think about that? How did it feel to see your partner or the team's performance go up? Any other thoughts on that?
What about when let me rephrase that question.
Yeah, perfect.
How did it feel when you were seeing Mojo's numbers go up? Like, because you were all working as a team in different ways for this one goal. How did it feel? Because we were like this until the very, very, very end.
I mean, I'm sitting over here doing math, like I was calculating how much of this competition we are, how much ahead of them we are, the point gain, how much each point was worth. So that was fun, just doing the numbers. That was a real experience.
Others? Other thoughts?
I think Mojo, like being at the top, kind of all boosted all of our egos. You know, we were more driven to win, like especially because so many of us have high competition. I know Isabella and I, we share competition number 1, so I know it definitely made us confident.
Monica has another question. I'm going to make you guys uncomfortable for maybe just a moment here. She says, while continuing to discover your themes, have you found this information to be helpful from an academic standpoint? Like, how is this changing the way? And Isabel, I see big, and Natalia, big smiles from you guys. Isabel, let's start with you. How's that changed your academic or your schoolwork?
So I have focus as number 3. So I'm up super late, like putting my best work in. I have achiever also as my number 2. So I'm up like super late doing homework, studying for tests. I'm like really into school. Like that's my number 1 priority right now. So it's really helped knowing why I'm so into school and how big of a priority that is to me. Natalia, you can go.
I'm actually, I guess, a little bit on the opposite because I'm definitely school isn't my favorite thing in the world. I'll say that. I'm not too into like academics and things like that, but looking at my strengths and especially seeing my top 5, I guess I kind of understand why. And I think it's because my strengths are more on the creative, I guess you could say like crazy side. Like I feel like my brain is always popping up with ideas and always kind of like always going. And I can also see that in certain subjects like English. It's a lot, probably my better subject because it's more about, I guess, discussing. And then something like math, which is definitely more of a, I guess, analytical, definitely looking at all the data, I'm not as good as because my strengths don't really go with that kind of thing.
Yeah, Natalia, don't let that get you down. You live in a world of high achieving, you know, if you look at Isabel just above you there, high achievers. I was, again, I think you and I very, very similar. We're doing what we're doing today because I had a crazy idea 10 years ago hey, we should start when nobody was thinking about podcasting or podcast or webcast or whatever you want to call it. And I said, hey, well, I've got this great way to reach the world and we could just try to do this thing. Let's give this a try. Right. And it's very social. It's very relational. Again, maybe you'll replace me at Gallup someday, right? Be able to come in and you'd probably enjoy. Would you think, Natalia, do you think you'd enjoy interviewing people and talking to different people all the time? And
you know, I think I would. I think I can definitely be a bit shy sometimes, but I've always found that I think I'm pretty good at talking to people, not to brag about myself or anything.
No, that's not bragging. That's just a statement of fact. I am good at talking to people, and not everybody's great at that, right? Who else? When we think about changing your academic, I was kind of thinking as you're looking towards high school, you know, how can I take it now that I know these things? How can I take advantage of that? Anyone else want to add to that? Yeah, Taven.
So we went to group. I take a class called AVID. It's Advancement via Individual Determination. It's like a college prep class, and we do a lot of group projects there. And usually it's either me doing all the work or telling everyone else to do the work because I have command and achiever. So usually, I remember one project I didn't really do anything except help others doing their things with command and achiever together.
Well, you have responsibility too, right?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. So we've had some students who similar to you, and man, I actually turn them kind of into the junior leaders in the course or in the stuff we're doing to be able to help and lead. I mean, you'd be fabulous in a situation of a big group that you would take over a part of the group, mentor, guide, help with, right? Those. Carol Anne, you're shaking your head yes as I'm looking at you. You agree?
Yeah, because I get a chance to see these kids differently because I'm one of their teachers, but I also get to kind of like take a sneak peek in some of their other classes via their teachers. How are they doing? What are they doing? And I get to see them work in their strengths sometimes when they don't even realize, that that's what it is they're doing. And so it's fun to come back and have those conversations of, wow, you led this group, it's always like, which theme do you think is leading in that one? Or what do you think, which one is firing off right now? And so it's fun to watch them navigate through school. I'm very excited to see what they do in college and in their careers. I just wish I had this opportunity when I was a kid for somebody to give me words that I could run with, like that I could hold on to and say, if all else fails, I have focus, whatever it is,
Some real hints, some real clues, 13 or 14, sometimes it's a struggle. It's like, what am I good at? Right. And I think this is actually more important, is getting that confirmation that, no, I am good at this. Like Isabella, as you were talking about your sales strength, by the way, we have a brand new sales report that's coming. I think you're going to want to look at yours at some point, but I think you've got some pretty good ideas, especially going into high school, of kind of how you can succeed based on who you are. Now, listen, you guys, the noodle's still cooking a little bit. So you guys have some time to learn and grow and do some things. Don't lock yourself in too much. But there was a question Sarah had asked, how well did you know each other going into this? And did learning each other's strength impact your friendship or relationships in that? How well did you guys know? Or Carol Anne, let me throw that question to you, and then we'll talk about the effects with the students. How well did they know each other going into this?
Some of them knew each other from elementary school, but they don't have any way that they can like partner up with a friend. It's just the luck of the draw, whoever ends up as a partner with each other. So some of them knew each other kind of from elementary school, and some didn't know each other at all. This is the first time they've met each other.
Better friendships coming out of this, knowing these things, or did that help in that? Anybody want to say anything about that? You can just unmute and say something. Okay.
So me and Natalia didn't actually know each other going into this, and I've never hung out with Natalia, and like a few weeks ago, I think I went with her and her friends just to see what she does and stuff. So it's definitely impacted our friendship because like we kind of grow together, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very much. Anybody else want to add to that? I got one more question for you guys. Yeah, go ahead, McKenna.
The only person that I knew before this class, she isn't here today. Like I met all of the people here just through this class, and we're all friends outside of this class now. And I think that like we've become pretty good friends during all of this. I think knowing each other's strengths and like all the activities we've done together has made us all pretty good friends.
That's fantastic. In a week, I think it's in a week, Carol Anne, you and I are I think it's next week, you and I are going to spend some time talking to the coaches, and that's going to be a fun interview to get it from their perspective. I can't wait. But I want to ask the students, what was the impact of the coach mentoring relationships that you guys had with those coaches? Raise your hand for me so I can see who'll go first as far as talk a little bit about the benefit of having a coach during this time. Yeah, Natalia, go ahead.
I think it was great. I think that having another person's perspective on things, opinion on things, really helped. It helped, I guess, open our minds to like different possibilities during this competition, during just learning about our strengths in general. I also think that having a strengths coach specifically was really, really helpful because they knew our strengths, they knew what we were good at, and they could look at those strengths and see how we can use them to benefit ourselves, to benefit others, using the power of two, our partner. And that was definitely really helpful.
That's great. Ashna?
Yeah, my team strengths coach really helped me like understand why I was the way I was. And she was just awesome because she helped us brainstorm so many ideas, which is what would the kickstart like this competition. We would like just brainstorm ideas, just write it all down. So I really loved my coach, and especially her knowing my strengths helped me a lot.
Isabella, did I see you raise your hand?
Oh no, sorry.
Well, even if you
sneezed.
didn't, I'm going to call on you. How was your
Okay.
coach?
So Natalia was like right on the money. Me and Natalia had like 3 different coaches, and they were all kind of different, but they all helped us work to achieve our goal. And I think we were with our coach Janice when we had the idea to email Gallup, and we all knew, wow, this is gonna be something. And I'm so glad that we're here doing this. So yeah.
Great, thank you, McKenna, and then Traven. I'll call on you. But McKenna, your coach impact.
Me and Taven had kind of a off schedule. Like the first meeting that we had with our coach, he wasn't there, and I think that I missed one of our last ones. But she was as our coach, and she was really helpful. She helped put words to all of these like personality traits that we had when we were kids, and like all of these things that we've noticed about ourselves, but don't know what they are, how to use them. And that was super helpful. She had us do this soundbar activity of like when our strengths are at their highs and lows, when we're using them, when we were doing 2 at the same time. And it was just super helpful to put kind of like a graphic image to that.
That's great. And Taven, how about you?
Well, we also did a chart. It's like a wants and needs chart. So that helped us a lot trying to figure out how to work together. Because like we could provide each other's like the wants that the other one would need, so it would be a lot easier to work together.
Carol Anne, what did you see from a coaching perspective of these coaches working with the students? Did you see anything special or unique?
Every single one was unique. Every coaching session was almost like they were gifted with the coach that would match them. You know, I have 2 kids that have high positivity, and Kathy came on, hey, and the kids are like right with her. And, I have 2 boys that are very analytical, and their coach was very quiet and calm. And it was just seemed like the coaches' personalities just happened to match the kids. And so it was exciting to watch them just connect. Still, I had just a student last night who this thing is all over, connected with his coach again on his own, just to talk with his coach again. So it was just a nice experience to think that these kids are getting the best coaches in the world have come to my class and breathed life into my kids. It was just so thankful. I was so thankful. And then when they got their 34, Charlotte Blair gave them their 34s. And so that was a whole another fun discovery that we had, and got to talk about that. And, of course, everybody wants to know what's on the bottom. And, when they see the bottom, like, oh, that's why, like but it's been a fun to be able to see all of those. So now, of course, all the parents are like, I want my 34. And so we're going to have a parent night in May.
Great.
With all the parents.
Great. Students, by the way, knowing and understanding your parents' top 5 will change the way you respond and react to them as well. Absolutely. And so maybe a great opportunity. My daughter, my youngest daughter, got into strengths a couple years ago, or more than that, like 5 or 6 years ago. We have a family strengths grid that we've put together that we actually spend time talking about, and it's been very, very beneficial from a family perspective. Caroline, I've got a question for you, but I want to thank the students for coming on today. All 5 of you, we had to do a sound check early in the week. You guys came in early. I mean, this started at 7 a.m. for you. Who can get 5 middle school students to show up at 7 a.m. for a crazy webcast?
6:15 a.m.
Yeah, well, it's true. You guys, it was an early start, right? Because we started half an hour beforehand. Yeah. So thank you guys for coming out. I'm going to throw you in the back room, but I just wanted to say from on behalf of Gallup, thanks for coming on and sharing and being a part of this. Excited to follow your futures. I will be following you now, so I'll be stalking you to for jobs. So just watch out in the coming years. We'll figure out how to get you guys in for internships, but thanks a ton and appreciate you guys coming out today. Don't go anywhere because I want to talk to you guys at the end, but I'm going to throw in the back room. So hang tight for me. Carol Anne, we got a question from the chat room. I got one more. There we go. We got a question from the chat room from Catherine, who said, as you follow the students through their strengths and academic journeys, is there an opportunity for them to participate in mentorship opportunities with local business leaders? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's kind of my next game plan. So what I do, the students that I have had previously, I kind of have a deal with them is when they go for their first job, and we practice, their strengths and weaknesses when they're going to do an interview. So we practice what interviews would look like. And I said, and when you get your first job, I want you to send me a letter and let me know how that went. And I still get letters. It's not my first job. This is my third job, but I just want you to know I'm using I talked about my strengths and weaknesses and or can you give me a recommendation and we'll pull those strengths and their strengths up again. So it's been very interesting for me as an educator to be able to follow these kids way past when they're in middle school and just see how that's kind of helped in their life. So now mentorship with businesses, that's my next thing. That's what I want to do next.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great opportunity we had started, I did a lot of internships that started with students that were freshmen in high school.
Yes.
And so we never were able to go all the way back to junior high or middle school in the way we do it. But it's great. You can see this potential. I see already, just on the webcast, I called out several. I'm like, oh, I would put you here and you could be here. And we got some opportunities there.
I do that all the time. Sometimes when I'm looking at them, like, oh, you would be really good at this job. Really, I'm kind of pinpointing them without saying it because they are so talented. And it truly is a game changer to have this language at this age. Because when I was 13, I was not thinking of writing grants to Coca-Cola and who I'm going to, what business propositions I may have in the future. But these kids are thinking way far beyond what I was thinking when I was 13.
13 and 14 is an awkward spot for CliftonStrengths in the sense that it's, we have Strengths Explorer, which is really designed for 10 through 14. And then, 15 or 16 and above for CliftonStrengths. I think some students, and you're seeing this today, I get this question in the community all the time. Can a middle schooler take CliftonStrengths? In some cases, and I think you're seeing it here, in some cases, that answer is going to be yes. These are students who were able to work through it. And there's like I said, there's lots of learning and growing.
There is, and we don't jump right into StrengthsFinder. We take a series of all kinds of assessments beforehand because they have to unthink how to take a test in school. It's not about me. It's not about what I think is the right answer. It's completely about them. And so it does take a lot of time to undo that process in their brains.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that on the last episode that we did. Is the reason you do that is because oftentimes we've trained our students to get the right answers. Like what's the right answer as opposed to what's the right answer for you? Like what's the truth for you, not what we want to hear, right?
No, because it doesn't matter what I think.
You have them taking those other assessments to kind of untrain that, right? A little bit, which I think is just brilliant. So that is great. We're getting some amazing comments from the chat room, and I want to thank everybody who came out today. Carol Anne, any final thoughts before I wrap this up today? Pretty great, and thank you for bringing the students.
Oh God, I'm so excited to hear from the coaches. I can't wait to hear what their side of it was. I know what our side of it was. I know the excitement that the kids had about talking to a coach and thinking like, oh my gosh, this coach is in Australia and we're here. They're not even in our country or not in our state. Nobody was around us. We were always talking to somebody from far away. And it was just exciting. I know what the kids felt. So I'm so anxious. I can't wait till next week to hear the side from the coaches of what they thought when they were talking to a 13-year-old, especially when they first open up and you're like, okay, this kid's 13. What are they going to know? And then talking to them and be like, no, they really know. They really get it. They really get it.
Yeah. Some great recognition before we go, some great recognition for the students. Sandy says, as a parent of one of these students, it's been amazing to watch, and the strengths of my child possesses has come to light, and that they've had the opportunity to learn how to use those strengths. Sarah says, thanks to these amazing students. Ken appreciates for all the sharing and the insights. Sandy's back to say, what a dream these kids. They kind of are pretty great.
They kind of are a dream
They
team.
are pretty great.
Not gonna lie.
It is pretty good. It was great to hear from the students and hear about their growth. You are all amazing. And then Catherine says, I've always regarded teachers as being one of the most noble professions. Carol Anne, you've taken your profession to greater heights. You are a life changer and difference maker. And so thank you for doing that. I too am excited about, and it's great when all these pieces come together, right? I got addicted to internships in this way, and that I just love to see the students grow. And, we eventually get them the opportunity to maybe work for us. But it was pretty amazing. I showed up every Saturday morning. We'd put 16 Saturdays in a year together to spend 4 hours a Saturday with these students, helping them learn to write software. Right. And that was our mission and purpose, to get them done. And so, Carol Anne, thanks. We'll see you again in a week. So hang tight for me. We'll get the coaches back. The bar is high, coaches.
I know.
Like, I'm sure they're watching this. The bar is high. These students,
and some of our coaches are on here. I've been watching their names come through, so no pressure.
And I'm serious. I'd hire Isabella to be a salesperson tomorrow. Tomorrow. No, today. Why would I wait till tomorrow?
Why wait till tomorrow?
With that, we want to remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources, everything we've talked about today available in Gallup Access. Head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths for coaching, master coaching, or if you want to become a Gallup certified strengths coach like Carol Anne is, we can help you with that process as well. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Stay up to date. If you're wondering when this coaches interview is going to be, you can register for it and get the calendar invite for it. Go to gallup.eventbrite. Parents, you're going to want to be here for this. So if you're listening to this now, go to gallup.eventbrite.com. It's already out there. Unlike last time, I was ready this time because I have no focus. So it's out there and it's available. It's there for you. Gallup.eventbrite.com, and you can register for it there. Join us on Facebook, and kids, not you guys, because you don't do this anymore. But go to facebook.com/groups/called-to-coach to continue in on this conversation. And of course, you can join us on any social media platform. And this is for you, McKenna. You can join us on any social media platform just by searching Clifton Strengths. I want to thank you for joining us today.